Yeah, so if y'all can turn your mics on, so the green, yeah.
You might want to move that way.
I like the little peepee. Are you back down?
Not yet.
We started, but we had to go, we had to stop because there's a big, group of people that suddenly got COVID in our office. It was like a lot. So
Oh, no.
we're like, okay, everyone has to go back and ask, let's not show up at work. So we started doing virtual, but it's all happening right before I've been vacation.
Good thing you
I've been back yet.
Share.
The volume was back. But then, some of the people that got it, they.
We're starting the meeting now. Andy, we're starting the meeting now. Good evening. It's 5 p.m. on Tuesday, August 10th, and the City of Sugar Land's Parks Advisory Board meeting is now called to order. I am Advisory Board Chair Barbara Gresham. This meeting is being live streamed and is also available on YouTube. The Advisory Board had hoped that we could start meeting in person. Unfortunately, because of COVID's Delta variant, that has delayed our all being here this evening. So we have board members that are here live at City Hall and others who are joining the meeting through Zoom tonight. Moving on to public comment. As no one has signed up to address the board, we'll move on forward into presentations. And before we begin staff presentations, please remember that board members will have the opportunity to make their comments on the staff presentations following those presentations. Okay, item 4, fact finding and recommendation. Consideration of an action on a recommendation for updates to the streetlight banner and flag and streetscape policies to the mayor and members of City Council. Eric Oscarson, Assistant Director of Public Works. Eric?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me. Again, my name is Eric Oscarson. I'm the Assistant Director of Public Works. I oversee the streets, drainage, and right-of-way sides of Public Works. Tonight, I'm here to kind of give you an update on the task force that the city had put together that was reviewing the streetscape policy and the street flag and banner policy. We're going to review those two banners. Those two policies. I'm not going to go through the entire policies. They're attached as part of the agenda. I'm just going to go through what those updates are. Sure.
Just interrupt for a second. We've got people also on Zoom. So we need to make sure the mic's on it. If you're walking around too much.
Can't stand still.
Okay.
Did you catch any of that?
Yeah, we got it.
You got it?
Okay.
All right, I'm loud enough. I'm usually loud enough. All right.
Okay.
We're going to review the policies. Again, I'm not going to go through the entire policy. I'm going to go through updates, the major updates that we made to the policies. And then at the end, we're going to ask that after discussion, the Parks Board, if they would recommend these policies on the way over to City Council for approval. And so we'll go through that tonight. Nice. There we go. So just to recap, the City Council put together a city task force back in April of 2019. So going on 2.5 years ago, a task force was created with the intent of updating the streetscape policy. Over that 2.5 year period, we met 17 times to discuss the two policies. And so during that time, it was asked that the task force take over the flag and banner policy as well. It wasn't the initial intention. Okay. Just so everybody remembers, the task force consisted of 17 members. It was a combination of HOA board members. The intention of that was some of the changes we were making to the streetscape policy had direct impacts to the HOAs. So our HOAs were going to take on some financial liability. So we wanted people that would be on board members that could vote and understand that decisions they were going to make would have impacts on their own budgets. And then the other people were just regular citizens that lived across the city. Ms. Guillen here was a member of that task force. We did have a council task force that was the Finance and Audit Committee. So that was 3 members of city council. That was the council task force. So as we went through the process, we would bring things to the citizen task force, and then we would bring it back to council task force. So we have kind of this back and forth as we were drafting the policy to make sure the citizen task force was on pace with what council was asking for. So with the flag and banner policy, just real quick, this policy is an internal policy. It is not a city council policy. It provides direction to staff on how we manage the flag and banner program. So I'm going to go through these real quick. There's a few updates to the policy. So our current policy has flags along just State Highway 6 and Eldridge. Not many locations, not many flags. The flags are outdated. So what the task force came back with is they wanted to include future banner locations. And instead of identifying those locations, we put criteria in place that would say it has to be on a major collector. It has to be in commercial areas, not residential areas. It needs to be near regional activity centers. So those additions are made to this policy. So it frees up, instead of being very strict on what roads are included, it is now multiple locations that can be included. We also identified that criteria. We also identified the funding source. So in the past, we didn't have a funding source for those. And one of the things we did was we met with our economic development group and identified them as being the responsible party for funding all the banners as we move forward. We also identified that specialty banners would be installed around event area for events around regional activity centers. So areas like Constellation Field, Smart Financial Center, areas like that could have specialty events, the festival site, Crown Festival site. Those areas could have specialty banners put up if there was an event that called for it. If there's a big 4th of July celebration and we wanted to put up 4th of July banners for an event. If there was a big event at Constellation Field like holiday lights, the Constellation Field could pay for those banners and the city would install them. We also identified a task force. So it's a small task force that is made up of members of staff as well as people we actually are going to be selecting from a group of Parks Board members that will be involved in designing and identifying where we're putting banners. So new designs of banners as we move forward. And when we identify funding, what roadways do we want to put the banners on? So this was all added to the policy moving forward. With regards to flags, the flag locations were updated. These locations are set. This is a new map of where those flags are going to be. We updated this map because we didn't include annexed areas. So now we have the annexed areas included or new development areas. So up by Imperial, we added locations. Out by New Territory and Greatwood and River Park, we've added flag locations. Public Works staff is responsible for the installation of those flags. And so in the future years, we'll be asking for funding for the flag stands and the flags to be installed at those locations. We also did add Patriots Day prior to, we did not install flags on Patriots Day. And so the task force recommended adding September 11th as a day that we put flags out. Those are the major updates to the flag and banner policy. I'll take any questions on this section now if you want, or I don't know how you guys are doing now, so I apologize. You want to do it now or wait to the end?
I think we can wait to the end.
Perfect. So the streetscape policy is now the right-of-way enhancement and maintenance policy. This is a city council policy. It clarifies who is responsible for the maintenance of the right-of-way, if that's the city or if it's an HOA or another entity. It also includes our landscape supplemental funding program and our streetlight reimbursement program. The landscape supplemental program used to be called the landscape reimbursement program. That's been changed, and we'll kind of go through that here in a minute. So some updates to the policy. This policy identifies like signature roads, Imperial, Signature, and Classic roads. These are the names of the roadways that we give depending on how we maintain them. We added a classification called non-classified roadways. These are roadways that don't fit into any of the other categories. We didn't want to call them local roads because there are some roads within the industrial park that are not considered local roads but are not included. We just wanted to make sure we covered every roadway within the city and how it was maintained and who was responsible for the maintenance of it. There was no major changes to how the city currently maintains the roadways, which is good. It means that we're doing a pretty good job on how we're maintaining the roadways and how the HOAs are maintaining the roadways. The only change there is, if you remember, we do not contract out services for right-of-way maintenance anymore. We insourced it and city staff now maintains it. So that language was changed in the policy. So we did change the landscape reimbursement program to landscape supplemental funding program. The reason for this change was we don't reimburse HOAs for maintaining their right-of-ways. We supplement them for maintaining the right-of-ways. Reimbursement would mean that was something that we should be paying for and we're paying them back for. That's not what the program's intended to do. The program is intended to supplement their funding. If funding is not available and the city council can't, and when the city can't afford to fund that program, the HOAs are still responsible for maintaining their rights of way. The current funding is set at 8.8 cents per square foot. That's what we supplement the HOAs. We do a calculation every year to determine how many square feet of right of way they maintain. In previous policies, it was set or was based on how much our contracts were. We don't have contracts anymore. So instead of being able to do that, we set it at 8.8 cents per square foot. We can adjust it up 3% by CPI for 3 years. During that 3-year period, we're going to evaluate actually how much it's costing the city to maintain the right of way. And then we'll set a new reimbursement, a supplementation rate, pardon me. Streetlight reimbursement, it stays the same. That's a program that we have for HOAs that have private lighting systems. That program stays the same. We're going to reimburse them for the cost to maintain those lights. We did add language to this that allows them to use joint CIP funding. That's through SL4B, our Economic Development Fund. They can use that to convert public lights to decorative. So if you have an area like Sugar Lakes has Cobra headlights through their subdivision. They've requested in the past to possibly bring those to decorative lights. They can take that on and use CIP funding to help pay for that cost. And also with private lights to public. So if First Colony, FCCSA determined that they didn't want to have private lighting anymore, they wanted to make it a public lighting system, they can use joint CIP funds to change those out. So that language was added to the policy. We added language regarding bridge and culvert crossings. This language was not included in previous policies. So we've had, one of the reasons we started looking at this policy was concerns over bridge maintenance and who is responsible. So the language we added is that the city is responsible to maintain the structural and aesthetic standards of a bridge. So if you think of a normal bridge that has concrete sides, a concrete base, those are things that the city maintains. When you look at bridges that have decorative features like bricks, decorative guardrails, things that are outside a normal bridge, those are considered enhancements. The city is not responsible for the maintenance. Those were installed by the developers and are responsibility of the HOA or the other entity to maintain. So we have that language is now officially in this policy. We do allow the HOA to utilize joint CIP funding again for capital improvements. And then we also added if a decorative guardrail was damaged and the HOA did the replacement of it, they could request to the city to reimburse them at a cost which would be similar to what the city would have paid to replace a concrete barrier. So normally we have concrete barriers or just regular metal guardrails and say the replacement of that guardrail is normally $10 a linear foot for the city. And the decorative guardrail is $20 a linear foot for the HOA for their decorative guardrail. We would reimburse them $10 a linear foot because we would normally have paid $10 a linear foot to fix the guardrail. So it does allow some funding available to the HOAs to help recoup some of their costs. We added language regarding decorative pavement. As you drive through the city, you'll see a lot of brick pavers, concrete, stamped concrete roadways. The city has no obligation to maintain that decorative pavement. That language was added. We also added language that if decorative pavement needs to be replaced, the city will fund the replacement of that decorative pavement if funding is available. And if funding is not available, we will reach out to that HOA to determine if they want to pay for the extra cost to have decorative pavement. If they do not, the city will replace it with standard concrete. But in an effort to be equitable across the city, we did add language in there that says, if we identify a location that we think would be that would benefit from the installation of decorative pavement or decorative pavers, the city would, if funding is available, would install those pavers. If we didn't have funding, we'd reach out to the HOA to see if they'd be interested in funding those decorative pavers. And then if not, we would just replace it with standard concrete. But in an effort to go to areas of the city that don't have those decorative features, we wanted to identify a way to possibly enhance those areas. We added language regarding inset parking. Inset parking is a topic me and Teresa were talking about yesterday. Is like in Lake Point or off of Imperial Boulevard, those are parking spaces that are set back into what would normally be a grassed area. So if you drive along, there's usually parallel parking along Imperial Boulevard. That's considered inset parking. The language we added, this was an area that was not covered in previous policies. The city's going to maintain that inset parking. It means we'll replace it if something fails. If we need to do striping, the city's going to maintain it unless that parking is required as a development agreement or any other agreement. So in some cases, when a developer comes in, they need X amount of parking spots when they build a building. We have requirements. Sometimes they'll need to build within the right of way to put those parking spots. If it's required as part of that development, that developer is required for those spots. If it's not required as part of the development, but we install them, the city will maintain them. And then we added language regarding constructions or repairs in the right of way. Again, this was something that was not included. And so what we wanted to do is make sure we understand that if we do projects in the right of way, if we are doing a new construction project and we rip out all the irrigation that the HOA has installed, the city is going to replace that. We're either going to fund it and let them do it, or we're going to do the work ourselves. But again, this was not covered in previous policy, so we wanted to cover it. And so what we did was we updated the policies and we got a unanimous vote from our task force with all the changes we made. I met last week with the finance and audit team, which is two council members and the mayor, and reviewed all these updates with them. They concurred with the updates. And so after tonight, if we get the recommendation from Parks Board, I'll be going to council at the end of September with a full workshop to get their feedback. And then in October, the policies, the one policy, the streetscape policy itself, will move forward and go to council for approval in October. And then the second policy, the streetlight and flag and banner policy, is simply a internal policy, and so it'll just be routed internally once council gives their blessing. And now I can take all the questions.
Okay, and as you know, we're going to go alphabetically, and I think that means beginning with Heather.
I have no questions since I was on the task force, so I asked all my questions at that
Oh,
time.
that's true.
He was very thorough answering all my questions at that time. So
Okay,
thank
no,
you.
Of course. Joan Hanson.
Unmute.
Can you hear me? Because I'm having connection issues. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
We can hear you on Zoom.
Is it the
Yeah,
only one
I don't
we
think they can hear me. Can somebody communicate that I'm having connection issues? I don't think they can hear me.
Taking a
Now we
moment to
can
get
hear
our
you.
audio. Okay, very good. Yeah, Joan Hanson, do you have any comments?
No comments.
Thank you, Joan. Oh,
Kelsey, tell them I'm having trouble.
You're all good. I think it was an audio issue on their end.
Okay.
Kelsey Johnson, do you have any comments?
Hi, everyone. I just have one question for clarity's sake. When you talked about the bridge maintenance policy, I immediately thought of the mural that the city had installed at the Brook Street Bridge. And I wondered if things like that aesthetically that the city initiated, will they be responsible for maintaining?
Yeah, definitely. Brook Street Bridge is a perfect example. Yeah, anything that the city does to add to or enhance a bridge or a structure, we'd be responsible for the maintenance moving forward.
Okay, thank you. That was my only question.
Thanks, Kelsey. Ho Jin Lim,
No comments or questions.
Kelsey Lowe,
No comments for me.
thank you. Andy Pham.
No question, but comment saying, it sounds all good. I like how everything's laid out, and hopefully with all the updates, it's smooth between pavement and implementation and everything. Okay.
That's the hope.
Tracy Pipes,
No questions or comments. Thank you.
and Kelly Reynolds. Be joining us this evening, so perhaps Kelly has no comments to make at this time, and if she does, she can let us know a little bit later in the meeting. What I really like is finally kind of tying with a bow the relationship of HOAs and our little communities with the city, because there've been a lot of questions and back and forth. And I think the committee did a wonderful job clarifying some points and making it, I think, a lot easier for some HOAs to go forward with some projects they'd like to, but they really couldn't. And now they'll have the ability to do that, provided they find the funding, of course.
Yeah.
So thank you very much, Eric.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And unless there are no more questions, I believe we can move forward and consider a recommendation on moving forward with these policies. And do we have a motion to take action on a recommendation for updates to the streetlight banner and flag and streetscape policies?
I'll
I'll
motion.
make a motion.
Thank you, Joan.
I'll
And love a
second.
second from Heather. And probably the best, because we can see everybody, is to say aye or raise your hand, because I think we can. Very good. Yeah, thank you very much. So that's unanimous from those who have spoken to proceed with our recommendation to move forward to the mayor and city council.
Thank you very much for your time.
Oh, Eric, thank you so much for yours. Now we're moving on to workshop. Consideration of that and action on a recommendation for the Cultural Arts Comprehensive Annual Work Plan FY 18 to 21 to mayor and city council. Suzanne Fernandez Gray, Cultural Arts Manager. And Suzanne, I know that you've appeared before us one other time. But it was, I think when you were just joining the city. Could you share just a little bit on your background for us? Would you mind?
Sure. I'd
Oh,
be
great.
glad
Thank
to.
you so much.
Yeah, I joined the city in January. And I've been in the public art field for more than 20 years. And I have master's degrees in art history and an MFA in actually creative writing. And but I've worked for state arts agencies. And for the last, since 2013 until January of this year, I was an independent arts consultant and worked with different organizations, cities all around Kentucky.
Oh, well, thank you so much for that. I appreciate that.
And today I'm here to speak with you about the comprehensive public art work plan, which comprehensive is the key word for this particular presentation. Normally I'd be coming to you with an annual work plan, but because of both COVID and the fact that my position was vacant for a couple of years, there is unspent funding from previous years that needs to be addressed. Let's see.
Just click anywhere.
Here we go. So the funding, there's funding back to 2018, a little bit of funding there, but the funding available from fiscal years 18 through 21 is just over $650,000. And so the plan that I'm bringing you today will be about addressing that. And it's a combination of SL4B and some hot funds. There is for 2022, $250,000 in for the cultural arts program. And I'll be coming sometime in the spring with recommendation for that funding. But there are a number of projects in the cultural arts department right now. And to help with project management, we're trying to space that out some. One of the things that we're initiating right now is we're creating a public art asset map. And as you see, the map is blank right now, But what we're doing is looking at the artwork that the city has currently and seeing where that is on a map. There are a lot of different reasons why we make selections about where to put public art, but certainly knowing what we have and where it is an important tool for us to have. And so we would like to just take a really good look at what we have, where it is, and see if there are some maybe areas that we need to put public art or we need to address in other ways. And I hope that will be about maybe 6 to 8 weeks that the city will have that map available. So in coming up with a plan for this year, the project selection strategy was to look at distributing art throughout the city. I would really be interested in getting more artwork out even into the neighborhoods so that artwork, people can experience it, everywhere they go, not just when they come to the core areas of the city or the shopping areas. An emphasis on high visibility spaces, that was one factor. And then to enhance commercial areas with social media friendly artwork. People, especially with this COVID era, people experience art differently now than they did 10 or 15 years ago. They want to share it with people. They want to use their phones. They want to take pictures of it. And so we want to help make that possible for people to do that. And then also a variety and size of projects. And then the city has its public art goals that were established in the 2016 Public Art Plan. And so we are keeping those in mind as well to create memorable places, anchor our activity centers, create whimsy and delight, enhance the appearance of infrastructure, and reflect on Sugar Land's history and heritage. One other thing that we are keeping in mind in establishing these different projects that we're looking at is creating a Sugar Land pre-qualified artist roster. And it's really saves the city a lot of money and it saves us a lot of time. And so we did in the spring a call for artists, a national call for artists, and actually had international artists in that call as well. We had 144 applications from artists. It was in a wonderful pool of very qualified people. So when our selection committee was looking at those applications, I also asked them to look at their qualifications. And so we were able to capture, I don't know the number exactly, but in the 40 to 50 range of artists, number of artists who were able to put on our excuse me, artist roster. And we will be adding to that. We're going to do a call specifically for people to join our roster, but that will be in a couple of months. So the first project is a project that has sort of been talked about in the city for a couple of years, and that is Lonnie Green Park. And this speaks to that effort to get more artwork into neighborhoods. And so I have an image here of some sculpture, but recently visited the area with some park staff, and there are so many lovely trees out there. And so there is a concern about not doing anything that might stress the trees in any way. And so now I'm considering maybe doing a mosaic or doing something with that sidewalk there. So we're still looking into that, and it will depend on the artist that we use, and we'll have lots of discussions, but we'd like to do something really wonderful at Lonnie Green Park. And 2 bridge enhancements. So we had that wonderful Brook Street Bridge mosaic, and I would like to do a bridge enhancement in each of the 4 districts of the city. And so 2 of those possibly for this year. And this is Williams Trace, which is in need of a little bit of sprucing up. And so that's one possibility that we're looking at, but taking 2 bridges in the city. The image on the right is some metal panels that are affixed to a structure. And there are some limitations. We can't paint Williams Trace, for example, because it would be quite expensive. So maybe there would be some sort of an application that we could do to that bridge. And that's something we're looking at. And then this is, speaking of that social media and the way that people interact with artwork. So this is something that we're calling Nectar Nights, and nectar being sugar water is a great link to the city of Sugar Land. And so the idea is to have 3 large light sculptures that are placed in 3 different areas of the city. And we can really promote it on social media, and people can drive by with their families. And it can be a really wonderful thing that will really attract people from outside Sugar Land to come and see some of the light sculpture that we have. And then median sculptures. And there's no location for this right now. We're hoping that the public art asset map that we're doing will help inform location for this. But there are some really wonderful, just individual sculptures that that can be placed in various parts of the city, and we'd like to do something there. And then the last project is the traffic box wraps. And so this is very popular, and we have a number of boxes that have not been wrapped yet. And so we have about $23,000 for this, which would be in the neighborhood of maybe 10 or 11 boxes that we would be able to wrap, and then also continue that project next year. And then the last expenditure is the hot money that we have. So the cultural arts program hasn't gotten any hot money in the last couple of years and won't be getting any in 22. And that is the only funding that can be used for maintenance. And so I would like to squirrel all of that money away to take care of present maintenance needs that I've identified, and there are some. And also to begin stockpiling some money so that we can address our future maintenance needs. As the city builds its public art collection, there is going to be more of an expense there. And so that is something that we really do need to address. Is the plan.
Very good. Well, thank you very much, Suzanne. Now we'll see what comments we have from board members. Heather?
Yeah, I have a couple comments and questions. The first one is I really like that public art asset map idea. Was wondering if that would be something that would be posted on the city's website or would be shared somewhere so that you know, people who want to find the art around the town can use it to go take pictures or visit it.
Yeah, so there will be some form of a public art map on the city's website. I don't know if it'll have like everything on it at one time. I would like to, and I think this is maybe a year or two out due to project management issues, but as we're building more artwork, I really do want to have a very interactive map so that people can search it. If they are just interested in murals, for example, they can just go to the website and find all the murals, or they can just search by sculpture or whatever. But I think it's really important for us to have that information on our website. So it will be, there'll be some form. I don't know if it'll be the public art asset map. I hope it's a little bit nicer than that.
Oh, well, that sounds great.
Yeah.
Because that's exactly what I like, I like searching for those public murals and the wall art. So definitely if there's any chances to have more of those in the city of Sugar Land, that would be great, which is kind of leading to my next question. You mentioned adding or working with commercial areas and adding public art in commercial areas. How does that work when it's not city, like where that's not city property? So is there like agreements where you work with the commercial developer on proposing something? I just wanted to know more about that.
Yeah, and every project is going to be different. We're working with, for example, on a project for the Lake Point pedestrian bridge. And so we're working with the Mud District because they actually own that bridge. And so that's a project that we're working on using funding from the All In for SLTX funding. We also have a bench project that is also that same funding source, and those benches will be placed in commercial areas. And so it's a matter of working with the property owners and, seeing if they'd be willing to have one of the benches there. So in Sugar Land in particular, the city, a lot of the property is not owned by the city. So and also the Nectar Nights program, for example, one of the locations we're considering is owned by the city, but leased by another entity. And so we have to have an agreement with that entity if we want to put something there.
Okay,
Generally, people are very happy when we talk to them about these projects. So that's usually not an issue, but there are more more things that you have to do to make that project work.
Okay, so you would initiate or this, your department would initiate that idea with that developer.
Yes.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
And my last question is really about the bridge enhancements process. Is that also something that gets coordinated with other departments in the city, like Public Works and things like that? Just wanted to know more about that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been, Eric and I have been working together on a lot of projects. The original committee that looked at those applications that we got in the spring was consisted of someone from planning, someone from engineering, Eric from Public Works, and then Cam Yurdy, who is our public-private partnerships person. So we're actually going to establish a process so that all of my projects will be running through those departments, because we definitely need their input on those things.
Right. Great, thanks. That answers all my questions. It sounds great. I'm looking forward to seeing all the additional art in Sugar Land. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Heather. Joan Hanson.
First of all, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so Suzanne, thank you so much. I'm so excited about all the work and the map. That's such an exciting idea. I was wondering, on the map, will it have kind of who's the artist that did the particular piece of art? Because I could see this going into schools in Fort Bend and Lamar Consolidated, and kids could go on a scavenger hunt to see the different works of art. And it'd be great to know who the artists are that did it.
Oh, absolutely. Every contract that the city writes will requires that the city give credit to the artists in any mention. And one other thing, I didn't mention it in the interest of time, but that Nectar Nights program, I'm also including in that budget some money to pay teachers to develop a curriculum plan with each of those sculptures. Because I feel like you do, that these kids that are growing up in Sugar Land, we want them to feel proud of this artwork, to be excited about it. Yes. And so, like, I'd love to have a science teacher maybe talk about, I'm not into science, so I don't know, but use that artwork in some way. We're looking at having a hummingbird, a butterfly, and some flowers, and what kinds of lessons, not just in the arts, but in other fields as well, could we have someone write curriculum plans so other teachers could use that as well?
Exactly, because we were talking today about El Campo and Wharton, and the museum in Wharton has some information about Wharton and El Campo having been a POW during World War II. And I didn't know that. It was interesting information. So I'm so excited that you're going to combine art with the core subjects, with a curriculum that would help kids understand that and enlighten the artist as to the significance of having their art have a meaning. That's a meaningful piece of art that's in a community to inform and instruct and teach, as well as enhance. So that's really exciting. That beautiful green piece that you showed in your slideshow, was that one of the artists that made an application? You had a beautiful floral design on the wall.
Yes, as a matter of fact, yes, that artist is Krista Birnbaum. And she was commissioned to do 3 murals, the 3 mental health murals in the parks. She did that.
Beautiful.
Same artist, yeah.
And then you said something about benches, because I'm so excited. Lonnie Green is down the street from me, and I absolutely love the trees. So I was thinking, you were talking about mosaics and the sidewalk covers of some sort. And then those beautiful kinetic sculptures that you didn't want to tamper with the trees, which I totally agree with. But is there a way to incorporate the trees in some way, like lights or something that wouldn't hurt the trees, but would enhance it, like make it look like a starry night or something? I don't know. I was just trying to think of something that would be whimsical too, because I love the idea that you're creating whimsy in the city of Sugar Land.
Yeah.
So all the ideas I loved, and I was wondering when the traffic box wraps competition will happen again.
Once the plan gets approved, which we're hoping would be sometime in September, I mean, it's gone through the whole city process. Then we'll start scheduling out how these projects run, again, from a project management perspective. And so I'm hoping that sometime in the late fall that we'll get to the traffic boxes and we can start working with that. We work with the Sugar Land Cultural Arts Foundation on that, so their timeline has to be considered as well. But people love that program, and I'm anxious to see what the new designs proposed are.
Well, thank you. All your projects look beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Kelsey Johnson.
Thank you. I don't have any comments or questions.
All right, thank you. Ho-Jin.
I have a few. So I like the idea of the pre-qualification that you had mentioned for the artist roster. I'm not sure, I think you mentioned how many you're anticipating. What are y'all anticipating in terms of the number of artists to be on standby or at least be on that roster? Second portion of that is, I guess you're gonna have as part of a category, as part of certain artists do sculptures, others do actual murals or other items. So is that gonna be, how's that gonna be set up?
Yeah, so artists will, when they apply, they'll be able to apply in different mediums, and they'll have to give examples of their work to make it into a certain category. The artists who applied in the last call, we will accept them using the work that they submitted. So if they submitted mural designs, then that's what they would be allowed to join the roster on as a muralist, for example. The public art plan also says that we can use artists who are on other cities' pre-qualified artist rosters. So I can look at Austin, for example, they have a roster, Fort Worth has a roster. And in fact, I have used a Fort Worth artist for a different project. And so, and there's actually no geographic limitation on being able to use artists on other pre-qualified rosters. But for now, we're just sticking to Texas.
Okay, so it could be a number of artists that you could choose from. I didn't realize you could go to other cities to choose from that. So I guess that's great. That gives you a lot of options.
It does. And in some cases, I like to do an open call, even though we may have some very qualified artists. It depends on the project. But sometimes if there's a benefit to like tossing a project out to the creative community and saying, hey, we have this bridge. And in fact, for those bridge enhancements, that's what I would do and say, here's what the bridge is. What would you do? And that's a really wonderful thing because, you know, I may have some preconceived ideas, but somebody may bring something that's, you know, totally new. And we would want to be able to have a selection committee consider that as well.
I think it's great because we got 652,000 from 2018 to 2021 to expand. And you said you're going to be developing the project management list in terms of all the different projects. Looking forward to seeing that list. We can have some great art work around the city. Looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ho-Jin. Kelsey Lowe.
All kinds of really exciting projects. Sounds really amazing. I was particularly curious about the Nectar Nights. You elaborated a tiny bit. Of course, as soon as you said Nectar Nights, I immediately thought of tie-ins to pollinators, which it sounds like you're interested in. Is there any, like, where are they anticipated to go? Are they going to tie into like promoting the butterfly garden or hummingbird migration? What's the idea behind that?
Well, so we haven't worked out all the wrinkles with property owners yet, so I can't really speak to the locations right now, but we are hoping that they'll be strategically placed in high visibility areas, and also that it's easy for people to get from one to another. So we're hoping that people will come and sort of do the tour. And we haven't talked a lot about how we would market something like that, but I would love to have supporting documents. You know, if there was something we could put online for people that were more interested, you know, maybe a sheet that they could print out, and maybe a family, you know, parents could print the sheet out and read it as they go and see each piece. But yeah, I think it's a wonderful opportunity to kind of bridge that art and science gap in particular here.
Very cool. Thanks.
Thanks, Kelsey. Andy Fan.
So I do like the whole entire, I think we're talking about the roster. I like how you can jump between different cities. And I guess during certain projects, it's good to have that open call because you never know the new up and coming artist that comes in to really rock the artist industry to bring new ideas and concepts. So it's good. I like the whole roster and then connect to, hey, you can be here, you can do that. And I'm glad that we have that establishment working with the artist industry. And then the Nectar Night, I think it's really cool, the idea that, what Kelsey mentioned too, about having something that's hones into what science and structure and everything that goes into the concept of Sugarland, nurturing, bringing something sweet, bringing, just energy and ideas into the city. The other thing, I'm not saying the only other, but another thing that I noticed when you said having a median artwork, median having it in the middle of a road. You're talking about like a road or a plaza that you kind of get to, because sometimes having a artwork there is for visibility of driving by and landmarking is nice, but just in case of, oh, I want to get a selfie with that. They're causing all these traffic incidents, people walking by, but I've seen people who've done median or actually side intersections or so, that's a little bit to the side, but roadways can see it. Are you talking about only in the median, or you're talking about other kind of spaces that's in a large intersection area?
Yeah, so I use the term median a little bit loosely because we don't know where we're going to put it.
Wow.
There are some roundabouts, for example, that could have a piece in the center. I mean, there are endless opportunities in terms of placement of where we could put that. Safety is a concern with every project that I do. And in fact, with those Nectar Nights sculptures, I have to be extra careful and make sure that there is parking available and that they're in very safe places because I know that those are going to be a selfie magnet. A metal sculpture usually doesn't have that kind of interest from people. They're not that, it's usually up high, so you can't really get a selfie very easily. So that is of some help, but it's sort of open in terms of where we would put that. And certainly working with, people here that deal with traffic and all of that, to make sure that it's safe and that the height is right and all of that. We'll take all of that into consideration.
To add into consideration, I'm a photographer too. And I know sometimes whenever there's new sculptures, new something that gives a good backdrop, it's not a selfie thing, but they'll, like say seniors to families to, different people who comes up to this photographer and say, hey, we want this in the backdrop. And you always think of what's a good buffer between that and the safety of the people in the buffer between traffic or any kind of danger. So sometimes they'll like say, hey, I want that sculpture in the background, but you get to that roundabout and it's like, oh, it's beautiful. I want to be there. It's like, well, this car is coming in. But this is the idea of like, if you're putting a sculpture or something that's high traffic, just keep that in mind. Because a lot of people always want that backdrop. Something like that. Cool. But yeah, everything's good. I like the concept. I can't wait to see how everything comes out this year or next year.
Great.
Thank you, Andy. Tracy Pipes.
Yes, I really enjoyed the presentation. Thank you so much for taking this and running with it. Loved Nectar Nights. I think that's a great idea. Can't wait to find out about where those are going. Also with the traffic box art, I love to see all the colorful art around the city, but I think with our soil or something, they get crooked so easily. And it almost defeats the purpose of it. And you're kind of like, well, why did they put that there if that traffic box is leaning? So who is responsible for making sure those stay straight and level?
The traffic boxes, I would assume Public Works. Is that correct, Teresa?
Yeah. And I don't know if it's our soil or if people run into them, but it just, I mean, they might be straight, they're straight one day and then the next day they're like, it's like, oh, that's kind of an eyesore because you want to look at it and appreciate it and then it's just crooked. So, so that is really hard to maintain apparently.
Yeah, I'm not aware of any that are crooked like that,
I
but
think because they get fixed and then they get crooked again. And so it's one of those things that I think is hard for us to maintain, especially since there's so many now.
They do have a technique where they can like pump concrete underneath it and it'll kind of raise them up. But I think as we found, William, that it does tend to settle again over
Yeah,
time.
it does.
So
Yeah.
it could, they could lift it, level it, and it might kind of sag again.
I know some of them are text dots, though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
not
Some of the
yet.
crooked ones on 59 that I've noticed are text
Text
dots.
dot,
And it looks like they're right close to a cypress tree and it might be the roots could be affecting it.
okay.
But Joe's right, I've tried to mud jack concrete at Eldridge Park and about a year later, it kind of sags again.
Yeah. Well,
And
you
so
don't notice
it's our
them when
soil.
There's
Yeah.
not a traffic, when there's not a wrap on them, you don't notice that they're crooked.
Yeah,
But when there's a really colorful, cool wrap
That's
on
true.
it and it's crooked, it's like seeing a crooked picture in somebody's house. You want to go straight in. I don't know. I see that. I'm sure there's other people that notice things.
You just
like
need to
that.
adjust the art to the lean of the.
well, actually, I'm glad you brought that up because we could, because some of these wraps will have to be done again at some point.
Right.
And maybe for locations where that is an issue, there are some designs, like an overall floral design where you couldn't really tell if it was crooked. And so that's something for us to keep in mind for those locations.
There you go.
Yeah. No
Thanks.
more questions.
Thanks,
Go
Trish.
on. Carry on.
Continuing with traffic box wraps, am I correct that there is no theme, that when there is a call out, artists present whatever their ideas are, and then the committee chooses from a variety, chooses from the art that's presented, but there's no theme that is required for the artists to follow?
So it depends on the call. So the call that we did in the spring was the broadest call I've ever done in my career. And that was because we were working with the timeline. We wanted a variety of projects and we were trying to sort of compress things. Normally, I like to do a very focused call where the artists know we're doing this specific bridge or this specific site. Here are all your dimensions. Here's everything you need to know. I like to not have a theme for projects most of the time. I mean, Nectar Nights will obviously be different, but because I like to give artists as much freedom to be as creative as they want to be. And they, again, oftentimes think of things that other people are not thinking of. And so it can be a really wonderful way to get some great fresh ideas. So, I mean, it just depends on the project. Each commission or each project will be commissioned in a different way.
Okay, thank you. And to clarify, again, on the budget for FY 18 to 21, you had 652,000. And then after FY 22 commences, then you will come forward with a plan for the 250,000 for that fiscal year.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I think Heather had another comment.
I was just saying, if you were asking about the call and the traffic boxes, I think the one time that I was reviewing those, there was a theme. I think it was like sweets or something like that for the traffic boxes specifically, the art call for that one. So just.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, because and looking around the city, they all look different, which is fine. But I just wondered, I didn't remember what the guidelines were in the plan, and I just wondered. Thank you.
Excuse me, Gal, can I ask one more thing?
Sure.
I didn't hear what Heather said the theme was. What was that theme on the traffic boxes?
I think it was like there were two calls for the traffic boxes. And the one that I was reviewing, I think one was related to sweeps. And I do know some of the ones that were picked were really like, you really had to go deep into like how sweet was tied into it. But a lot of them were sweets. So that was what the theme was.
Sweets?
Yeah.
Sweets, okay.
Yes.
And then I forgot one thing, Suzanne, that I saw that I thought was interesting when I was looking at art in towns, and it was manhole covers, that Japan has the history and even some art on their manhole covers. I guess that's what that's called, right? When that metal on the ground. And I thought that could be an interesting place for history. But anyway, thanks.
Yeah,
Thank
I'm
you,
actually
Joan.
familiar with those manhole covers in Japan. They're quite lovely.
Well, I think that concludes our questions and comments. And so now we need to move forward and consider taking action on a recommendation for the Cultural Arts Comprehensive Annual Work Plan for fiscal years 18 to 21. So is there a motion to move forward with that?
I'll make a motion.
Oh, Hojin makes a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Andy Fan seconds. And again, because we could visually all see one another, if you agree and would like to move forward with a recommendation, please raise your hand. It appears unanimous from all that I can see. So we're moving forward then with our recommendation for the plan as presented. And thank you so much, Suzanne, for being here this evening. Really
Thank you.
appreciate it.
I look forward to working with you. Lots of projects.
Thank you.
And now we have our illustrious director who is going to give his director's report on park topics, upcoming events, recap of June, and undoubtedly other things.
Okay, I'm gonna defer to Bowen to start it off. And she's gonna run through our projects coming up for the fiscal year 22 and then 23 as well on some of them. And then these are capital improvement projects. And we also have some other donor funded projects that she's also gonna update you on.
Thank you, Falman Ju. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Joe. We have been very busy on the parks development side for the last 1 to 1.5 years. And then moving forward, we will continue working on quite a lot of projects. So those are the capital improvement projects and some non-capital improvement projects. We have been updating you in the monthly director report. But it's a good opportunity to have an overview with you today. The first project is the Colony Park Phase 2. This project is funded by Colony Park Conservancy donations. We're currently in the Phase 2 design. It includes 1.2 miles of trails and some additional parking. We anticipate the project design will complete this fall, and then hopefully we can go out for bidding this winter. When Phase 2 goes out for construction, we hope to start the Phase 3 design, which is a nature exploration project. And again, that Phase 3, which is kind of down the list, I kind of jumped over a little bit. The Phase 3 will also be donated. The funding will come from Conservancy donation. And thank you, Kelsey Lowe, for serving that board as well. So the next one is the Sugarland Pump Track project and also the skate park relocation projects at the Crown Festival site. These two are probably our most fun projects, and William is managing these two. He gave a detailed presentation at the July board meeting, Parks board meeting. And I believe Joe will show something more details in his presentation. And the next one is the senior center study. We have Kimberly, Heather, and we all have been working on that project for a while. It is a high priority project recommended by the 2018 Parks Open Space and Recreation, Parks Recreation and Open Space Master Plan. So this project primarily includes two parts. The first part is we do study and analysis to find out the new senior center amenity needs, the ideal location, public engagement, public feedback, and also the cost estimate, rough cost estimate. And then the next step will go with a consultant to come up with the PER, which is the preliminary engineering report, and also get ready for the next bond election. The next one is the Brazil Park Phase 3. I presented this concept design in the last Parks Board meeting as well. It is going to be funded by the remaining funding from Parks Bond, 2013 Parks Bond, It includes a large pavilion, a playground, and associate pathways. We are very excited about the upcoming schematic design, and then we believe this is going to make the Reservoir Park a greater destination. I just covered the Colony Park Phase 3. And then the next two projects, First Colony Trail and the Ditch H Trail, they are both funded by 2013 Parks Fund as well, and that they are managed by our engineering department. And I also know that after the 2020 Food Bank Parks Fund, they also gave some funding to these two projects. So very exciting. Both projects are moving on. They will make our Sugarland pet and bike system a lot better. Then the last one on the CIP project list is the old Imperial Farm cemetery improvements. Sugarland 4B kind of funded about $150,000 to better preserve the existing cemetery at the Tailfell Parkland. And there's a potential to also install some temporary or permanent art for the memorial and the cultural purposes, preservation purposes. And this project is going to be managed by the city manager's office, and the park staff will assist during the process. So that is the list of the CIP project for FY21 and 22. And then at the same time, as Joe mentioned earlier, sorry, how can I get to the? Oh, it's just slow. Okay, sorry. Those are some of the non-CIP projects we have been working on. I know Daphne, our philanthropy manager, gave a presentation, I think a couple of months ago. So normally, sometimes a resident reach the city or the Sugarland Legacy Foundation when they want to donate. So normally we try to seize the opportunity, come up with the concept and recommend the location, and then help push the projects forward. So those are the three ones we are working on. Eagle Plaza Phase 2, William is managing this project. The project just went out for bidding a couple of months ago, and the bid opening was mid of July. They came back a little bit over because of the the overall increasement of the labor cost and the material cost. We just need to seek a little bit more funding. And also Gold Star Monument Plaza, we update you in the previous presentation. We have been working on the MOU between the donors and the Sugarland Legacy Foundation and the City of Sugarland, and then we'll present the project to the City Council on August 24th. Once they approve, we're going to proceed under the MOU. The Welcome Home Plaza, Daphne also presented last time. I think the idea is to try to engage the public for the sculptural themes and also the funding, the fundraising part. Definitely will come back to you with more details once the three projects move to the next steps. So with that, this is kind of a list of the CIP and non-CIP project. We are really busy, and we will bring those projects back and ask your input and suggestions, and we will incorporate as we move forward. Thank you.
Do you want to ask any questions or
Okay.
before I do the rest of it?
Does anybody have any questions for Foman before I see a hand? Hojin?
This is a very, it's not related to the project. It's more of the Ditch H project. Now, it's great that's going on with the trail system, but is there a possibility that Ditch H can be renamed to something different?
Well, I know they just held a public meeting, I think a couple of weeks ago. And I I will forward this comment to their project manager, Keisha, at the engineering department.
Okay.
Um,
Kind of curious. I've known ditch shape to be ditch shape for decades. I mean, since I worked on it, a long time ago. Just curious.
That comment has come up, and I think there is some serious thought going into how do we get it? Is there a better approach to naming those ditches? So.
And those of you on Zoom, did any of you have comments? None, okay. Well, thank you. Didn't want to leave you out.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Coleman.
Thank you.
Okay, I was just gonna go ahead and touch on a few of the ongoing projects and events that happened over the last month or so. On the left, we've got landscape replacements going on in a lot of parks. Like I'm sure you experienced at your homes after the winter storm. There's, a lot of freeze damage happened on plants. It took a while to determine whether the plants were fully dead or if they were going to come back or partially dead. I've got, some that have kind of looked like they were coming back and then they just kind of stopped. And now it's kind of like, are they dead? Or are they alive? So we're experiencing the same thing in a lot of our parks. And so this gave us a good opportunity to come in and replace some of the things that died and also enhance some of the plantings. We're finding, over the years, plants will do well for a number of years. Like, for example, Indian hawthorn's a shrub that people have used here for many, many years. And you find that after 8 or 10 years, they really start to decline and there's not a whole lot you can do about it. So we're looking for more native type plants to use in the parks that we think will be more sustainable over the years and not have to replace them as often. So a lot of that is trial and error. But one of the things that you'll see in this picture here that we've really been using quite a bit of and are really happy with is called Turk's Cap. It does attract hummingbirds and other pollinators, and it's a native. It has a red flower on it. It does die back in the winter. That's one of the things we're also seeing. Some of the native plants tend to die back in the winter, then they come back, in the spring to more of a perennial. So working throughout the park system on that right now. And I think actually we just kind of wrapped that up. And one of the things we also did was make sure that the sprinkler systems were in good working order, at each of these locations when we put them in, put the plants in to make sure that they would be watered. We've been lucky this year with all the rain, but it's August, so it's probably going to stop and get really, really hot. So just wanted to be aware of that. Then another project that went through our rehabilitation funding we have each year at Memorial Park. The asphalt pavement at the park, especially going to the dog park, was starting to deteriorate in places. So we had a renovation project done there where we cut out the asphalt and then reestablished and compacted the sub base and then retopped the asphalt. We also cracked sealed areas where the asphalt had cracked and then seal coated and restriped many areas there. And the main parking lot was closed this afternoon for restriping tonight. So we generally do that kind of work at night, so we won't have a lot of people into the parks. Oh, click and then button. Okay. Okay, there we go. This was, I know we went over the pump track with you. I want to say, was it last month? I believe we did. And so we have continued to work with our consultant, which is a company called American Ramp Company. And there's also their international partners called Velo Solutions. And they have put together a kind of a fly-through video of the proposed trail and track. So we just wanted to show that to you. There's no sound to this. of get the idea of how you would be riding through it and the kind of the elevation changes that you would see on the track itself. That structure you saw is called a riding wall, and ours would be the first pump track that I've seen, and really even on their website, most of the pump tracks don't have that one. So it's a feature that the riders really like because it allows them to get up higher on that wall area there. And so we'll be one of the first to have one of those riding walls.
Do they ride on that wall? Or do
Yeah, they ride, they get enough
Oh.
speed to get all the way up on the edge of that wall. Maybe not all the way to the tip top of it, but a ways up there. So that was that.
I'll have to go watch this.
Work on it a little bit at a time.
Yeah, just work your way up. A little bit.
I'll tell you what, some of those bikers take it real serious. They're really, I mean, they're loving that wall ride because it gives them an element of height and some skill, some challenge.
So. So that project is moving forward. That is leased property that we have from University of Houston. So we're incorporating or taking that to the University of Houston because that's one of our requirements in our agreement on that property to get their review on that. So that's still ongoing right now. We hope to clear that hurdle before too long. The Sweet Soiree was held at the Imperial Park Recreation Center at the end of July. This is the dance that has traditionally been our dad-daughter dance that's held usually around February or some kind of close to Valentine's Day. Since we've had a couple of years now of COVID shutting it down, and we weren't able to do it this last February, staff got together and thought, let's go ahead and do one kind of more as a going back to school kind of a party. And so we also kind of, people were still, a little concerned with COVID, so we didn't want to pack the gym with people. So we had a limited number of tickets that we were putting out to make sure we had a comfortable sized crowd there. People could still distance if they, it would be just allow for their own comfort level for how much they wanted to be around folks in that setting. So it turned out really nice. We had a lot of compliments on the decorations that were done. Instead of it just being a dad-daughter dance this year, we decided to open it up fully for families. So you could have moms and sons as there as well too as the dads and daughters. So there again, it's just an event it's just a fun event that we put on every year to kind of get families out and about and see the rec center as well. It introduces some people to the center. So we did for Parks and Recreation Month is July, and so we held a movie under the moon night on July 23rd out at Oyster Creek Park. Oyster Creek Park over the years the trees have grown in so large, and so the kind of the amphitheater area there is all in shade now. So even in the hottest times of the year like now, it's really pretty pleasant. So we've been focusing on holding some of our smaller events there, and we did this one in July, and I'll bring up that. I guess we'll look at that question later. We did the movie night in July, and then in August we're also going to do our food truck Fridays will be out at Oyster Creek Park in August. So we'll have 3 dates in August. We'll have movies, and we'll have a movie each night, and then we'll have the food truck set up there at the park. So these are just kind of relaxed, kind of just family events. They don't have a huge crowd drawn to them, but they're just a nice way to get people out on a Friday night in the parks. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Well, beginning with Heather, do you have any questions?
No questions.
Joe?
No questions. Thank you.
Joan, any questions for Joe?
I was just thinking it would be nice if we had a calendar of what's happening. I never get to the movie nights and I'd like to. I was wondering if in the, like I would try to write it down and then I forget I wrote it down. So
Joe,
thank you,
are
Joe.
you admitting that you're not on our social media?
I But thank you, Joe. Great report as always.
Okay,
I'm
thank you.
confessing, yes.
Okay.
Kelsey, did you have anything you wanted to add? Kelsey Johnson?
Sure. Thank you, Joe and everybody. I just wanted to say I really like the new and updated landscaping that you've done in terms of replacing some of the freeze damaged vegetation, et cetera. And I think that from what I've seen around the city and then the few photos that you showed us tonight, like it's looking really good. So I appreciate your effort in that and all the things you do. And I don't know if the folks that are in person in the meeting can see the chat, but I was poking around with this in the city of Sugar Land's website and found a public arts map that I wasn't aware of. And so there is actually a resource for residents and tourists who want to do like a self-guided tour of different public art things in the city. So in light of Suzanne's presentation, just wanted to share that resource to those in the room and on Zoom and for the general public to know about. So that's a great resource that I appreciate. Thank you.
Yeah, Kelsey, thank you for finding that. That is a great resource. Thank you. Ho-Jin?
Just one question regarding the Cullinan Park. You want to go, how often is it cleared in terms of all the, because this shrubs, they grow quick. I was wondering, what's the schedule on clearing those underlying brushes?
Are you talking about the lake or the trails or the?
Trails, more the trails than anything else.
The trails are on a, let's see, I think they're on a 14 times a year cycle.
14 times.
All trails are on a 14-time mowing cycle, but they're inspected by my guys probably at least once a week.
Okay.
But the Wesco landscape contract mows them 14 times a year. So it's a once a month. And then in the growing season, like July, August, September, it's twice a month.
Okay, great.
So every other week.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. That's it.
Yep.
Kelsey Lowe, anything to add?
Nothing except I really appreciate the use of native plants in landscaping, especially the Turk's cap. Looks really, really good. And I think it's a great investment. So keep up the good work.
And congratulations to you for being appointed to the Cullinan Park Conservancy Board. Congratulations. Delighted to know that one of us is involved in that. That's great.
Thanks.
Andy Pham.
Not really any questions, but it's really cool seeing the whole facility thing that's happening at, I don't know what it's called, at the Crown, the bike, so what's it called?
The pump
Pump track.
Pump track, right. Yeah, I can't wait to see who did like crash.
Thanks, Andy.
No, but
I want the point.
No, because my son's getting into that, so I think. So anyway, so it looks really good. And then, yeah, and can't wait for the food truck stuff to happen and the movie night, I think, so good.
Tracy Pipes, anything to add?
I'm very excited to hear about the extra parking at Cullinan Park. That is great because it is really a nightmare. So I've been there on the weekends and you
It
can
is
turn around and get in and out. So that's great to hear.
Well, I think if there are no more questions. Thank you so much, Joe.
Thanks.
Really appreciate you and Lynn for your presentations. And that being the conclusion of our business tonight, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion.
Ho-Jin makes a motion to adjourn. Would anybody second?
I'll second.
Heather seconds our adjournment. So our August 10 meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.